Hello, I'm Simon Roderick from Fram. I'm delighted to be joined by Keith Grindlay of Macro Thoughts. Some of you may have already seen Keith's research, and you may have also seen him posting on LinkedIn with some really fascinating insights. Keith, it's been a long time since we saw each other in person. How are you and how's lockdown life?
I'm well, thank you, Simon. Survived so far, and I suppose I've got a little bit longer to go, but I think I've seen Notting Hill 3 times now, so I guess it's getting a little bit boring.
Well, Keith, I was going to introduce you as always the fashion, but actually I wondered if you could give us a brief career history and an overview of what Macro Thoughts do.
For sure. My background is trading. I've managed trading desks at UBS and Dresdner, and at JP Morgan Asset Management. I ran global macro investments for London and New York IBF accounts during the financial crisis. Macro Thoughts is a bespoke research company. We have a basic reporting membership, but we also work with clients on specific bespoke assignments, and we work our way up to non-executive directorships with hedge funds. Our corporates include German family offices or New York manufacturers, as well as pension, hedge and investment funds.
And how have strategies performed this year, Keith?
We've done very well. As you know, we met in February, and we had already flagged up COVID back in January to our clients. And from that, we were able to forewarn them of a major equity market sell-off in March. In May, we said that there was major changes to asset classes to develop, and a different mindset was needed. And unfortunately, COVID has obviously lasted a lot longer than most have expected. But generally, we've had a good year, very positive year.
Now, Keith, I'm not going to ask you today for any investment advice. I'm going to steer clear from that. But I just want your personal thoughts on how you see the world going forwards. And actually, you're right. I really wanted to talk to you today because you were very much the first person who flagged to me the dangers of this awful coronavirus. I think at the time it was in the press as being described as a flu-like virus that was sweeping through China. And sadly, it's turned out to be something far more. I don't want to talk about the UK's COVID response from a health perspective. I think that's unfortunately become something that's actually more divisive than Brexit. So we'll steer clear from anything like that. But I am very interested to hear your thoughts on how you feel Mr. Sunak has coped in terms of the economic policy response. How do you feel he's got on?
I think the UK government started 2020 very positively. The property market was rebounding. There was positivity from the Brexit and the election. Unfortunately, they were only a couple of months into office when obviously they were hit by Brexit itself and COVID. So any experienced government would have struggled in those circumstances. I think there has been mistakes made, but generally I think, and again, let's not forget that Sunak was brought into office at the last minute. He was a late replacement. So it's not been easy for them. Mistakes have been made. But I think that generally the UK economy has done pretty well. I think that the BSNP could have been a lot worse. Tax receipts are obviously down, but they're not disastrous. And unemployment has not hit the heights that we're seeing in the US, for example. Nonetheless, a lot of our economy, or the UK economy, is service-based. So much of the unemployment won't be shown up in official figures. But I think the response so far has been positive. The question now is how the UK government manages the economy for the next 4-5 years, not necessarily the next year, but does it have an approach that is growth based, that looks for development, which it appeared to have before COVID hit the hardest, or will it go down the route of heavy wealth tax and raising stamp duty and things like that. So for me, I think it needs to have a long-term approach towards the debt issues, which are global. Long-end interest rates will be stronger, but with a strong pound, I think that encouraging business investment into infrastructure projects will be a positive for the economy.
Okay, so I picked up there you talking about taxes, and in particular the kind of the tax burden that the UK economy is now carrying, as are other economies as well. I think it's important to note. How much of an issue do you think the spending's been over the last year, and what would you do going forwards if you were, in Rishi Sunak's shoes?
I think for debt and the amount of debt that's going to be issued by DMOs or globally, or from treasuries globally, they're going to push interest rates up anyway. Credit agencies are going to, ratings agencies are obviously going to come into question, but it's a global issue. So therefore, I think that Sunak should take a long-term view on debt. The World War I and World War II debt took 100 years to get rid of. We've got 100% debt to GDP right now. Compared to the end of the Second World War, which was 250%, it's manageable. But it's manageable if we encourage growth and we don't go down the same route as was forced on Greece with austerity, and we start taxing and talking about wealth tax. 5% wealth tax is quite scary. What we need is investment to come in from abroad. We've got pretty good business investment figures at the moment. That needs to continue. And as we start getting vaccines online, hopefully, most people will be vaccinated by June, at the latest September. That initial boost that should encourage the economy, it needs to continue. My fears for the global economy is that by the end of Q4, the global economy starts to slow. The UK has the ability to ride through that. It's proven in the past that it can withstand big shocks. It was one of the first real economies to come out of the financial crisis, and the UK consumer is pretty resilient, and that tends to get forgotten in if you like, economic areas, because it's almost boring the way growth gets back to its normality and just hangs in there. So we need to see that development in foreign investment. We're seeing good returns in coal production and other areas of the economy. So Sunak needs to take a long-term view. He can raise corporation tax slightly, but he's in his March budget, he has to start addressing whether he's going to extend stamp duty to keep the property market on the strength in. Estate agents had a good year last year, considering the issues they had to face, and they're pretty optimistic right now. And if you have a property market that's strong, then other areas of the economy follow: white goods, furniture sales, etc. These are areas which are strong for the UK economy. It does not need heavy taxation in property or on consumers now, which will slow that down, because that could hit confidence pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is a sort of dovish stance towards taxation, growth focused, that kind of global outlook as well. I want to ask you, obviously we've had the US election very recently. How do you see a change of government in the US and the Biden administration changing the economic outlook in 2021?
Okay, so the Biden has already brought in a $1.9 trillion package. Another package can be expected. I personally think US unemployment is much higher than the official figures. So I would gauge real unemployment in the US to be above 10% right now. So Biden needs to address this. He also needs to address foreign policy, because of relations in China and China's foreign policy aggression over the last year. I don't see China as the same sort of growth area that it has been. Xi Jinping has been slowing that economy down since 2017, aggressively since 2017. And policies in 2020 were very aggressive. So I see there's issues in China. US needs to develop relations with Europe. Whereas the US consumer was the growth area before the financial crisis and China was after the financial crisis, I think that Europe and especially the UK have the opportunity to take up the slack, if you like, lost from China, develop relationships with other areas of the world. Australia, India, has the opportunity to develop new innovations, the new world of development of hydroelectric power, for example, and if with that kind of incentive, the UK economy should benefit from it. The Biden area has a lot of issues to overcome, and it would take him at least 2 years, I would imagine, to bring back anywhere close to the growth level that needs to be returned. We could talk about 5 and 6% growth in the US this year, but that only balances out the growth that was lost last year. So it needs to develop this. It needs green policies. There is a development in cars and the movement towards electric cars and away from carbon energy. That will take a short period of time, but then that encourages sales and that encourages another retail turnover, which should boost economies generally anyway.
Keith, I always enjoy talking to you because, as your company name would suggest, you do take this big picture approach and you look at themes. COVID has brought in a lot of themes, some of which I personally have been quite surprised by. So we've seen a real boost in housing sales, but obviously there's other trends as well. Working from home, a boom in home entertainment and subscription services. How permanent do you think these sorts of changes are? And what does that mean for us going forwards?
I think the development of home entertainment was already happening anyway, and that came out of the financial crisis. People now are buying home entertainment. They don't want to go, or they don't go to restaurants so much now. They'll eat at home. They'll use whatever home entertainment means they use. But that is a sign, if you like, of as much as anything, an economic change at consumer level. It costs to go out. New cars are expensive. New clothes to go out are expensive. So buying an entertainment home and sitting in your jeans and eating from Deliveroo and the other companies that bring the food in are a positive in that way. And I think this is, if you look at Chinese exports, that's what, along with medical equipment, has been their big boost, home entertainment and cinemas. And so I think that's a boost, but it also encourages restaurants, restaurant development and restaurant sales, because any restaurant is restricted on the size of its of seating, if you like. But a restaurant that can deliver with Deliveroo has got endless capacity. So, that move is long-term development. I think property, if you've got property development and moving from, if you like, high-rise to houses, which means you're then buying lawnmowers and having curtains and everything else, that's another boost to an economy. So I think there's plenty of boost to the economy there. The long-term changes in America will affect the UK, and that is a move away from shopping malls and bricks and mortar sales, and now the development of click and collect, if you like, those that were not encouraged to use Ocado and delivery of the groceries, probably the older generation, they're now used to it now, so they don't need to go to Sainsbury's in the same sort of way. These are long-term changes. It's Ocado van drivers are, if you like, the new growth area for the lower paid, if you like. So it replaces, fulfillment centres are replacing retail shop sales. These are long-term changes, and the development from then means that from there you don't need cars in the same sort of way. So therefore you don't need two cars. You buy one car, but that one car might be an electric car rather than a carbon car.
Yeah, absolutely. So these huge shifts, and interesting to hear about how restaurateurs can perhaps develop their offering, and they've had a very difficult time of it of late. So let's hope that that's true. What about the work from home trend as well? I mean, what's the potential impact for the economy on that? We feel that probably people are going back to work 2 or 3 days a week in the new world going forwards. But how do you feel about the impact of working from home on the economy?
I had this conversation with one of our clients last week, and he was adamant that everyone would want to get back to work as soon as possible. And my view is the similar to yourself, 2 or 3 days a week. Fund managers and operations, the need to be in the office is still maintained. And I think that there's a point that says that the younger, if you like, the younger generations will want to be in offices. There's an entertainment value that goes with it. There's the after work entertainment as well. And is the career minded, I need to be seen in the office. But, if I would imagine there's been a mini baby boom over the last year, and a lot of husbands will want to be working from home with that, with babies being there. And I also think that, that one of the trends that seems to have developed is the amount of women that seem to have lost their jobs, especially in America. So, that is not a good sign. And maybe that the idea of job share and working from home, and that will be a new development that will grow, which, good for companies, because let's face it, top line at the moment, I see corporates downsizing, and I think that's already happening. They've, in the same way that governments have got debt issues, corporates downsizing, to me, will be another point that equity markets will need to consider over the next year or so. But that doesn't necessarily mean they want to drop their sales base. They don't want to drop their product development. So, the working from home, especially women working from home, might be a growth area, which will be a real strong positive in the next year.
Yeah, I think so, Keith. I mean, I think this unfortunately hasn't hit people equally. You've talked about there that female representation in the workplace has perhaps suffered because of this. Unfortunately, the UK isn't perhaps Scandinavia, and therefore childcare commitments historically are still falling to women, and that's that's been a real challenge for companies. And I think going forward, perhaps what we're feeling is there's going to be a repurposing of money from huge expensive office blocks to perhaps taking a bit less space, having more flexible working. And I hope it does filter through to a better diversity and inclusion agenda going forwards. So that's all really interesting stuff. Keith, thank you so much for giving me your thoughts. As always, it's very nice to hear what you have to say. I hope that we get to see each other as well in the not too distant future. I mean, it was a year ago that we sat there and discussed this threat to the UK economy, and I can't believe it's been a year. I can't believe, unfortunately, what we've all been through, but I do look forward to seeing you in person. Until then, keep well.
Thank you very much, Simon. Take care.